Let's get right to it, because even though I got a whole bunch of NBA stuff to get into, LeBron James, Carmelo Anthony, Rajon Rondo going off about D-Wade and Jimmy Butler in Chicago. Okay, the Lakers and how they stick, the Clippers and how they're on the verge of getting Carmelo Anthony. That's primarily on my mind. But I got to tell you something. I got to deviate from that, and it ain't even to get into football, per se, meaning the Super Bowl. Ladies and gentlemen, I have to confess to you that I have a little pet peeve. It is true that I get a bit emotional. It is true. It is true. It is absolutely true. Because on the radio, I have a license to do that. You can speak on television. You know, you can bloviate a little bit. You can get hyped and all of that other stuff. But the visual matters and the visual impact. And you want to show people true and raw emotions. You don't necessarily have to always do that on radio. But damn it, I try to be real. And I feel the way that I feel. And I just cannot help it. And I have to admit to you that even though this is no leading story, it doesn't compare to the Falcons versus the Patriots in the Super Bowl. It doesn't compare to LeBron in Cleveland. It doesn't compare to the fact that Melo may be on the verge of becoming a Los Angeles Clipper because Phil Jackson is willing to take a box of cookies just to get rid of Melo and send him to the Los Angeles Clippers, meaning he doesn't have to give up CP3 if you're Doc Rivers. You don't have to give up Blake Griffin if you're Doc Rivers. You don't have to give up DeAndre Jordan. If you got Jamal Crawford or an Austin Rivers or a J.J. Redick approaching the last year of his deal, and you too are willing to take that for the services of Carmelo Anthony, who is Doc Rivers, to fight with you about that. This is what's on the verge of happening. I'm not saying it's close, but it's not far. I do not know, but it is chance. It is a 50-50 chance right now that Carmelo Anthony could end up in Los Angeles as a member of the Los Angeles Clippers. They are definitely talking to the Knicks. They are definitely on the phone. And that is something that we will sit here and revisit as the show progresses today. But none of that stuff is on my mind. None of it. Because this is the Stephen A. Smith Show. And I'm allowed to sit there and dictate my own news headlines, damn it. And what really, really rakes my nerves is that damn Des Bryant. Yet another Cowboy finds himself in the news. Des Bryant sits up there and goes out there, ladies and gentlemen, and says, quote, "I think we're the only team that could have beaten the Atlanta Falcons." Oh, really? Oh, really? This is the same Dallas Cowboys team that yet again has not won a playoff game. This is the same Dallas Cowboy team that went 13-3 this year. That should have been 14-2 if the last game of the regular season against the Philadelphia Eagles actually mattered. This is the same Dallas Cowboys with Ezekiel Elliott and Dak Prescott. Not only individuals worthy of Rookie of the Year honors, but rookies who are worthy of bona fide league MVP consideration. They had them. They had Des Bryant. They had Cole Beasley. They had Terrence Williams. They had Jason Witten. They had the number one offensive line in football, and they still lost to a Green Bay Packers team whose secondary was decimated by injuries. To a Green Bay Packers team that didn't have Jordy Nelson. To a Green Bay Packers team that had somebody named Geronimo Allison catching passes for them. Geronimo! That's his name. That was his name. This dude was catching passes. Eddie Lacy wasn't there to run the football, so Ty Montgomery had to do it for them. Devontae Adams was there too. These guys beat the Dallas Cowboys, but Des Bryant wants to sit up there and act like the Dallas Cowboys is the team best suited to beat the Atlanta Falcons. See, this is why the Dallas Cowboys are the most disgusting, nauseating, pathetic fan base in American history. This is why I despise them. This is why I want to vomit every time I hear from one of them, because it doesn't matter what you do. It matters what hype you can create. They can go 13-3 or turn around, go 3-13. Ladies and gentlemen, they'll wake up the next morning and say, you know we're going to win the Super Bowl next year, right? 21 years and counting, they've done nothing. This is the kind of stuff that nauseates me. And the reason why I bring them up all the time is because you can't escape them. They're like cockroaches. A nuclear bomb could drop and somehow, someway, a damn Cowboy fan could be found. Just like a cockroach can be found. I just can't stand them. I can't stand them. They make me that sick. Because they never accept accountability for their own ineptitude. How pathetic they are when it comes to not getting the job done. That's why I don't like them. They don't take a moment to wallow in their stuff. You know what they remind me of? Jeff Fisher, former coach for the Los Angeles Rams. 22 years. He's the coach of an NFL team. 16 times he misses the playoffs. ain't gonna actually have the audacity to sit around and act like he's surprised that nobody wants him. And they're gonna get rid of him in Los Angeles. He gonna sit up there saying, I'll get another job. Like he deserves it. See, this is the nonsense right here. What happened to accountability, ladies and gentlemen? I just wanted to make sure that I got that off my chest. 866-729-ESPN is always the number to call. That's 866-729-3776. I just wanted to get that off my chest to make sure that everybody understood exactly where I'm coming from. Right here on ESPN LA 710, right on 98.7 FM in New York, and of course, Sirius XM, ESPN Radio, Channel 80. Now let me get back to subjects that actually are relevant and actually do matter other than the pathetic Cowboys. This stuff about Melo and the Clippers, from what I'm being told, is real, y'all. Now, let me be very, very clear. Carmelo Anthony doesn't like Phil Jackson. Phil Jackson doesn't appear to like him very much either anymore. Phil Jackson clearly is willing to unload Carmelo Anthony. Cleveland wasn't willing to give up Kevin Love. Phil didn't want to take back J.R. Smith and Iman Shumpert, of course. And as a result, you have a situation where Cleveland doesn't appear to be a possibility, but who know how things can change as the trading deadline approaches and teams get a bit more desperate. The Clippers, on the other hand, may not be willing to wait that long, which would be smart of them. Now, you have some people that sit up there and go like this. Hey, got to move Blake Griffin, I guess. Oh, don't move Blake Griffin. And then we hear the news that Phil Jackson ain't even requiring that the Clippers let go of Blake Griffin, CP3, or DeAndre Jordan. Keep all three. So with Melo making over $22 million this year, salaries have to fall within 85 to 90% of one another, which means that you're going to have to give up something if you're the Clippers. And when you look at Jamal Crawford's salary, when you look at J.J. Redick's salary, when you look at Austin Rivers' salary, because Austin Rivers is making more than $10 million this year, when you look at all of those different things, you're going to have to give up 2 of the 3 in order to get Melo. Would Doc Rivers give up his son? I don't think so. You still need a backup point guard. Jamal Crawford is more of a shooter and a scorer than a point guard. You certainly don't need Jamal Crawford if you have Melo. Here's my thing. You got people out there talking about if Melo arrives in L.A. with the big 3 that's already there, there is no excuse if the Clippers don't win a championship. They can now officially compete with the Warriors. I disagree with that. I don't like the thought of Melo and Blake Griffin on the same team. Unless Griffin was playing a 5, which he's not. I don't like it. Now, the beauty for Melo is that DeAndre Jordan ain't going to take up no space because we know he ain't scoring in the post unless it's a dunk. So with outside of that, what you going to do? Melo too big now and slower and older to put him at the small forward. He's better off at your power forward slot. And because he's better off there, what you going to do with Blake Griffin? I don't need Blake Griffin and Melo on the floor at the same time with one another. I don't like it. Not to mention the fact that Blake Griffin sometimes have had issues with not touching the ball enough when it was just him and CP3. Could you imagine if Melo was here? I don't like it. But I do love the fact of Melo coming to L.A. in place of Blake Griffin. I tell you that much. See, I like Blake Griffin in New York with Porzingis. That works for me. In the Eastern Conference, not the West. No San Antonio, no Golden State, no Oklahoma City, no Anthony Davis, no Memphis, no Houston. I like Blake Griffin and the thought of Blake Griffin with Porzingis in New York. I think that's something to build upon moving forward in the future. I'm not trying to sit there and say Blake Griffin is a scrub. Not by any stretch. He's a star, and he can really play. I don't want to hear superstar attached to his name. I'll tell you that much. And I'll explain why and more in a minute. You're listening to the Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio. Your phone calls and more in a minute.
Billy Joel, the stranger, was, looking for these different sides of yourself that you may not always be aware of.
Darling, only the good die young.
Taking us on a track-by-track tour of one of his favorite albums, The Stranger. It's a Sirius XM exclusive.
I want you just the way
Billy Joel's The Stranger, track by track. Today, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 Pacific, on the Billy Joel Channel, Sirius XM 18.
Guy to guy, don't you hate buying shirts like dress or business casual shirts for work? On one end, you have high-quality, stylish shirts, but they're crazy expensive. On the other end are affordable shirts, but they fit weird, and you look like you slept in them. Charles Tyrwhitt solved your problem. CT shirts are the most exquisitely tailored, crease-free shirts ever. They're British styled. I mean, like James Bond cool British styled, with the softest, most comfortable fabrics. Tie or no tie, tucked or untucked, showing up in a CT shirt means you've arrived. One CT shirt normally costs $100, but here's a crazy deal. Order now and get 3 shirts for just $99. That's 60% off. And CT shirts come with free delivery, a 6-month quality guarantee, and free returns. Just $99 gets you 3 amazing shirts.
Visit ctshirts.com/sports. ctshirts.com/sports. That's ctshirts.com/sports.
Hi, I'm Eric Casabiri, founder of Retro Fitness. 20 years ago, as a 22-year-old fitness fanatic, I was consistently disappointed by the quality, cost, cleanliness, and attitude of the local gyms. Fed up, I decided to launch my own gym with what many in the industry said was a crazy idea. Create the high-end gym experience I wanted for a price everyone could afford. The great news is America agreed. From Retro's humble beginnings, we've grown to almost 150 Retro Fitness franchises across the country, hundreds of thousands of Retro members, and have even been featured on the hit show Undercover Boss. Today, our top franchises average over 6,500 members, with annual club sales over $2.3 million and EBITDA of almost $800,000, making Retro Fitness franchise ownership a very powerful investment if you're looking to expand or diversify your current portfolio. While growth is rapid, ownership opportunities are available nationwide. If you'd like to learn more about Retro Fitness and franchise ownership, go to ownerretro.com. That's ownerretro.com. We look forward to hearing from you.
Franchise offer made by prospectus only.
Have you racked up more than $10,000 in credit card debt? Are you barely getting by making minimum payments? You should know. The credit card companies are tricking you into thinking there's no way out. Credit card companies would rather you didn't know that there are ways you can become debt-free and you don't have to pay the entire amount you owe. There are debt relief programs that help people like you escape overwhelming credit card debt. National Debt Relief has helped tens of thousands of people just like you reduce more than $500 million of debt. National Debt Relief has helped so many people, they're A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau. You don't have to declare bankruptcy or take out a consolidation loan. You have the right to settle your debt for a mere fraction of what you owe. Reduce a portion of your debt now. Call National Debt Relief at 800-617-3034. 800-617-3034. That's 800-617-3034.
When we change oil, it's pretty common to find newer cars running very low on oil. It's due to the new low-tension rings and oil vapors that slowly burn, leaving carbon deposits, which lowers their mileage and, even worse, leaves their engine dangerously low on oil. My customers tell me they want their mileage and their oil back.
Shops use BG products to clean clogged rings in just 15 minutes as part of the BG Performance Oil Service. Go to bgfindashop.com. That's bgfindashop.com.
I got my mileage back, BG.
Call Quicken Loans today at 800-QUICKEN to see how much we can lower your mortgage payment. For 7 years in a row now, J.D. Power has ranked Quicken Loans highest in the nation in customer satisfaction for primary mortgage origination. And for the 3rd year in a row, they've also ranked us highest in the nation for mortgage servicing. Call 800-QUICKEN or go to QuickenLoans.com. That's 800-QUICKEN.
Visit jdpower.com for award information. Call for cost information and conditions. Equal housing lender. Licensed in all 50 states. NMLS ConsumerAccess.org, number 3030.
Greenie, you know how to win at business? Tell me how. Show up early for meetings. That way everybody who's only on time looks like slackers.
Well, I got a better way to win at business.
What's that?
Instant free nights at La Quinta Inns and Suites. You can show up with no advance reservation and redeem your La Quinta Returns loyalty points for a free night that same night just by using the La Quinta app.
I feel like I'd win at business more than you.
I'd cream you at business.
Impossible. I'm undefeated at business.
Go to LQ.com now and prepare to win at business.
Listening to the Stephen A. Smith Show.
Was Rondo going off about Dwayne Wade and Jimmy Butler calling out the team on Wednesday. Remember how Dwayne Wade and Jimmy Butler for the Chicago Bulls were talking about guys weren't playing hard. They seemed to care less than they did and all of that other stuff. Rajon Rondo, champion with the Boston Celtics, played with KG, Ray Allen, Paul Pierce, coached by Doc Rivers, won the championship, lost in Game 7 of the NBA Finals back in 2010 to the Lakers, won the title in 2008. Rondo's on the Chicago Bulls team now, recently suffered a benching, but he's back in the lineup. Listen to what he said in response to Dwayne Wade and Jimmy Butler. My vets, this is an Instagram post that Rondo posted. He said, my vets would never go to the media. They would come to the team. My vets didn't pick and choose when they wanted to bring it. They brought it every time they stepped in the gym, whether it was practice or a game. They didn't take days off. My vets didn't care about their numbers. My vets played for the team. When we lost, they wouldn't blame us. They took responsibility and got in the gym. They showed the young guys what it meant to work. Even in Boston, when we had the best record in the league, if we lost a game, you could hear a pin drop on a bus. They showed us the seriousness of the game. My vets didn't have an influence on the coaching staff. They couldn't change the plan because it didn't work for them. I played under one of the greatest coaches, and he held everyone accountable. It takes 1 to 15 to win. When you isolate everyone, you can't win consistently. I may be a lot of things, but I'm not a bad teammate. My goal is to pass what I learned along. The young guys work. They show up. They don't deserve blame. If anything is questionable, it's the leadership. Clearly, Rondo was talking about D. Wade. He's talking about Jimmy Butler. He's talking about Coach Fred Hoiberg. And my God, is this bad. Now, chances are, Hoiberg isn't going anywhere. I mean, when you hear those words, you sit up there and you're saying his days are numbered. This dude going to get fired. There's no way that he's going to last. And you're thinking that way because you're saying to yourself, how can it be? Because you got to remember, if the Bulls were to fire him, they'd owe him about $15 million. And we're talking about Jerry Reinsdorf here. He doesn't give away money. If you ain't working for the money, you ain't getting paid. And if you got to pay, he going to make you work. So he'll keep Hoiberg around longer than he wants to just so he doesn't have to pay him for doing nothing. Unlike Dan Gilbert, who's still paying Mike Brown, who's still paying David Blatt, who Forbes magazine speculated has lost in excess of $40 million last year as owner for the Cleveland Cavaliers, Jerry Reinsdorf ain't having that. If he paying you, you gonna work. So the guys that told me that might very, very well be right. We shall see. We shall see. 866-729. ESPN's the number to call up. That's 866-729-3776. Let's go to Mike in Denver. You're live with Stephen A. on ESPN Radio. What's up, Mike? Talk to me, man.
Good morning, man. How you doing, man?
I'm doing all right, man. How's everything?
Everything is fine, man. This Carmelo stuff, man, is gone to the tilt, Stephen A. You got to believe that Phil Jackson, if he's trying to send him to Cleveland with Melo, he must know this got to be a short-term thing. You don't send him there with you in the same conference with you.
Well, that's true. He doesn't seem to care. Well, Phil knows he's not winning. And because Phil knows that he's not going to win this year, he's not a part of the championship equation. So since he's not a part of the championship equation, it is what it is. It doesn't matter where Melo goes. Phil just wants him up out of there.
Right, but I mean, for Phil's sake, you think he might just see the writing on the wall? He might not be in New York too long either.
Phil needs to leave. Phil needs to leave.
Exactly.
Phil needs to voluntarily walk out of town because he's stealing money, negligence, dereliction of duty.
we know that too. Yeah, I just man, it's just to the tip of the iceberg with everything, man. Then they even try to send him to the Clippers and say we don't need CP3, Blake, or DeAndre Jordan. Man, it's just, that's a slap in Melo's face, man.
That's a slap in Melo's face. That's what Phil Jackson's trying to do. Mike, I got to bounce, man, but I appreciate the call. You absolutely right, Mike. You absolutely right. I mean, it's a slap in the face to Melo. There's no way around this. Eli in New Jersey, you're live with Stephen A. on ESPN Radio. What's up, Eli?
What's up, Stephen A.? Long-time listener. How you doing?
Thank you. Go ahead, man. Appreciate it. Go ahead.
So I just wanted to talk about the Melo Blake thing. So first of all, I think that if Melo comes to the Clippers, you don't think that he's going to ruin the entire team's chemistry?
What chemistry do they have now?
Well, whatever chemistry they have now, which is not a lot, but still, Melo's going to come and just demand the ball all the time.
No. That's not fair to Melo. Because you have a real point guard and a real leader in Chris Paul. Chris Paul runs that offense. And Doc Rivers, let's not forget, the impact that he has on players. I respect the hell out of Mike Woodson, who's an assistant coach on the Clippers now, who was the former head coach in New York with Melo when they went to the Eastern Conference semifinals and won 54 games and won their first Atlantic Division crown in 13 years. But make no mistake about it, Doc Rivers is Doc Rivers. And he's on a different level in terms of his coaching ability and his ability to communicate with the players. You might have questions about Doc Rivers, the general manager. There are no questions about Doc Rivers, the coach. Certainly when it comes to his communication skills with the players. And when you combine that with CP3 and his leadership, there's nothing to talk about, Eli. You have no concerns. But I appreciate the call. Thank you so much. Dre in West Palm, you're live with Stephen A. on ESPN Radio. What's up, Dre?
Big homie, what's good, man?
Talk to me, man. Talk to me.
Stephen A., I can't understand how you don't know how this works, brother. You call yourself the doctor of love, right, sir?
The Love Doctor. I stole it from
the Love Doctor.
I stole it from the show Martin with Martin Lawrence.
Of course, I know that. But listen, here I'm going, Stephen A. I know you pressed for time. This man, Phil Jackson, just lost wifey, man. He just lost Jeannie Buss. His train of thoughts right now, Stephen A., he's obviously not thinking right. Phil, why in the world would you keep Melo in the Eastern Conference? Stephen A., I know that's your man's in them. Melo got to go out west. I don't want to see Melo in Cleveland. I don't want to see Melo in Boston. Send him to the Clippers. Okay, we can't get Blake. We can't get CP3. We can't get DeAndre Jordan. You're going to give us a bunch of garbage pail kids. It is what it is.
Hold on, Dre. Let me chime in here and interrupt you. That ain't the bad part. Not getting CP3, not getting DeAndre, not getting Blake. You know what the bad part is?
What's that? Phil
Jackson ain't even asked for him. He didn't even ask for it. Now, I can't bring up the whole Jeannie Buss. That's personal business, and I don't go that route, although I understand where you are coming from. And as it pertains to Melo in the Eastern Conference, what difference does it make to the Knicks? The Knicks ain't going to be relevant for years, so what difference does it make? They ain't going to win any time in the near future.
I'll give you all on the phone, man. We all give each other on the phone, brother. Knicks fans, man. We hurting, man. Love you, Stephen A.
Appreciate you, man. Thank you so much. 866-729-ESPN is the number to call up. That's 866-729-3776. You are listening to the Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN LA 710 on 98.7 FM in New York, and of course on Sirius XM, ESPN Radio, Channel 80. We'll continue talking about Melo. We'll continue talking about the Cowboys. We got to get into some conversations about the Super Bowl because Julio Jones said something. Julio Jones, the stud that he is, said something about the New England Patriots, as well as Kyle Shanahan, that I think y'all might want to hear. It's going to be real interesting to see how the Patriots respond to what he had to say about them and himself. I'll tell you what I'm alluding to coming up. It's the Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio. Your home against the New England Patriots, and one of the key components in that game is going to be Julio Jones. How are the New England Patriots going to stop him? Can they stop him? What should they do to neutralize him, if anything at all? Can it happen? All of that and more we'll get into hour number 2 right here on the Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio. Back to the phones we go at 866-729-ESPN. That's 866-729-3776. Let's go to Sugar in Michigan. You're live with Stephen A. on ESPN. What's going on?
Nay Smith and Break. What's going on, baby?
Hold on for a second, man. What the hell you doing with the name Sugar? Explain.
I got that from my mama a long time ago.
All right. Hold on. Mama gave it to you? Yeah. Then I'm good with it. Yeah. Okay. All right. That's the perfect excuse. Mama gave it to you. I'm all right. I just wanted to make sure another dude or somebody didn't give it to you. Sugar, I mean,
right.
You know, that's like
moms too, Stephen A.
I appreciate that, man. That's like Cedric the Entertainer when he sat up there and said his boys wanted to call him Delicious. You see what I'm saying? Right. I was just checking. All right. Go ahead and make your point, bro.
Okay, on the Melo tip, I remember when the Pistons had the number 2 pick, man, and they went and got some guy named Darko Milicic.
Yep. Instead of Melo.
I can't believe.
Hold on. Instead of Melo at 3, Bosh at 4, or D-Wade at 5. Go ahead.
Right. I can't believe that. Until this day, I can't believe that Melo stock and plummet like that. I mean, we're talking about Melo. Now, is it that he not playing good defense, or they just considering they think he gonna hog the ball? But the 3 teams that you mentioned that could want him, Boston, LA, and Cleveland, didn't nobody want Melo, and then the Boston said they'll take Courtney Lee.
Well,
what is going on?
Well, you got to remember, in the case of Boston, it makes no sense because what they're missing is a go-to scorer when it winds down. But here's the issue. With Isaiah Thomas playing the way that he's playing, which by the way is on an MVP level, he's a miniature guard that puts it up and makes things happen. If you're Danny Ainge, you're questioning whether or not Isaiah Thomas and Melo could coexist. In the case of Cleveland, I don't understand why you're not willing to give up Kevin Love. In the case of the Clippers, listen, they may take him because if Phil's not demanding that Blake Griffin, DeAndre Jordan, or CP3 comes to New York, then I don't know why the Clippers wouldn't take him. I can tell you somebody who's going to be in Doc Rivers' ear telling him to make the deal. That would be Mike Woodson, the assistant coach, Melo's former head coach in New York. I can promise you he'll be in Doc Rivers' ear telling him to take that deal.
Okay, now if he don't go to LA, do you think Melo will end up on a bowl team that ain't got no chance to do nothing?
No, because he has a no trade clause, and because he has a no trade clause, he has the right to pick and choose where he wants to go. He can veto any deal because of that no trade clause, which he most certainly will do. Melo will not leave New York unless it's to an instant title contender. He will not leave. Under no circumstances will he allow that to happen.
Man, thanks for taking my call and everything. But on the football tip, them boys better be quiet in Atlanta, man. They gonna make that number 1 quarterback shred, that young secondary. They better be cool.
I got you.
Okay, thanks a lot, Stephen A. Man. Appreciate you.
If they're talking too much in Atlanta, the T.I.s of the world and others, if they keep talking smack, who knows what Tom Brady's going to do to that young Atlanta secondary? It remains to be seen. Let's go to Rakesh in Seattle. You're live with Stephen A. on ESPN Radio. What's up, my friend?
Buddy, I'm doing very, very good, my friend. I saw your take this morning about my Cowboys. You know, you are the one making us relevant, my friend. You are always talking about us. Des Bryant is absolutely right. Okay, we could have destroyed the Falcons, but that's besides the point. The reason why I'm calling you, my friend.
Rakesh, how is that beside the point when y'all couldn't even beat a depleted Green Bay Packers team? How is that beside the point?
My friend, okay. Maybe you got me there. But I will tell you a favor to ask you, okay? You are 0 for 6 in NBA Finals, okay?
That's right.
You will take
0 for 6 in the last NBA Finals. I'm about 98% right in everything leading up to the NBA Finals, and I've certainly gotten college football right, baseball right, football right, etc., fights, boxing right, or whatever. But y'all can hold the Finals against me when I get emotional.
Okay.
It's okay.
You use that magic and bring it to this Super Bowl and choose the cheating team, New England, and they will lose. The Falcons that avenge my Cowboys will win, and next year we will win too. So it's a win-win deal for us, my friend.
So in other words, you called here, 2 weeks after the Cowboys losing, here you are telling me that the Cowboys going to win the Super Bowl next year. That's what you really called up to say, isn't it?
My friend, we have the brightest future in the league. Of course, we're going to win.
I'm not listening. You got something to say about the Super Bowl? I'm not listening to you about your Cowboys. I'm not talking to you. Your Cowboys are irrelevant. You don't deserve airtime to talk about the Cowboys. Do you have something else you want to say before I hang up?
Okay, my friend. So you're going to choose the New England Patriots?
I haven't decided yet. I'm going to wait until Friday to make my pick a week from today. That's when I'm going to make my Super Bowl pick because the game's the following Sunday. Why do I need to rush? I got time.
Okay, my friend. But one last thing. Okay, my friend. This kind of thing with the NFL, my friend. This Super Bowl is going to be an amazing Super Bowl. Okay. The Cowboys gone, okay, that's okay, but I think Falcons will take this victory, my friend. Falcons is a team.
We'll see. They definitely got talent. They've got depth. They can get at the quarterback. They definitely got a legit chance. We'll see what happens, but I'm not underestimating Brady, not by a long shot. Let's go to Harvey in New York. You're live with Stephen A. on ESPN Radio. What's up, Harvey? How are you?
I'm good, Stephen A. I just want to say something to that nasty previous caller. you call Stephen A. up in a condescending voice saying he's 0 for 6 in the finals, blah, 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 blah. And yet you watched him on First Take for 3 hours, and you're bothering to call him up. He's not calling you, buddy. You're calling him. So who's the idiot for saying that?
It's okay. It's okay because I am 0 for the last 6 NBA Finals, because how was I supposed to predict that Kyrie and Kevin Love was going to get hurt 2 years ago? Draymond Green was going to get suspended for Game 5, and D Wade was going to be hurt against San Antonio, and all of this other stuff. I don't worry about stuff like that. Listen, man, I don't get paid to sit up there and have accurate predictions. You get inside information. You watch the game.
Stephen, I just want to, before I get into a couple of comments against Phil Jackson, I want to say that you remind me so much of Howard Cosell in your style, the way you phrase, the dramatic delivery that you have, your vocabulary, and that's a compliment on my end. That's a compliment. Did you watch him growing up? Is he somebody that you like?
I idolized Howard Cosell.
There you go. See, I had a feeling, because you have a lot of him in you, and nobody else does, just you. Now, to get to the Knicks, I want to go back a couple of years. I want every Knicks fan to listen to this now. LaMarcus Aldridge wanted to come to the Knicks. He was the number one choice, not the Spurs. He had an in-person meeting scheduled with the Knicks.
Yep.
And the naive, incompetent general manager, Phil Jackson, 3 or 4 days before that in-person meeting, calls him on the phone, says, LaMarcus, I want you to play the 5. I want to let you know that before the meeting. And Aldridge says, hey, I'm an all-star 4. I want to stay at the 4. That's where I want. Oh, no. We want you at the 5. Blah, 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 blah. And the meeting is canceled. An intelligent GM, even if he wanted Aldridge at the 5, would have not said anything and had the in-person meeting. You feel the guy out. Maybe you could compromise. Say, look, we could start you at the 4, but is it okay if we rotate you a little bit against the big centers where you could put? And maybe he would have said, we'd have Aldridge, and we wouldn't have Noah at center, and this whole Melo crap wouldn't be happening. You'd have Aldridge and Melo at the forwards, and you could have KP and this kid Gomez alternating at center without Noah, and tell me that wouldn't be a much, much better team than what we have right now.
Totally agree with you. What's your second point real quick? Go ahead.
Okay, second point is, I'm sick of hearing Phil gets credit for KP. No, he doesn't. The Knicks had the worst record. They won the last 2 games and slipped to the second worst. They did bad in the drawing in the lottery and slipped down a 4th. He would have drafted Karl Anthony Towns. Everybody would have. We know that. But after Towns, he wanted D'Angelo Russell, and then he wanted Okafor. But the Sixers and Lakers picked both of those guys. And when it came to the 4th pick, he didn't even know anything about KP. The European scout knew about him. Steve Mills knew about him. And they haggled and fought with Phil. And convinced him. They used up all their time. And then they picked KP.
Harvey,
Phil never fought it.
I got you. I got to run. I appreciate the call. I appreciate the insight, because you're absolutely right. That's exactly how it went down. 866-729-ESPN. It's 866-729-3776. More of your phone calls in a minute. We're still talking Melo and the Clippers and what may happen there. Phil Jackson, don't y'all think it's time for him to just come back to L.A.? Not to come to the Lakers, not to come to the Clippers. Just come back to L.A., go home, relax, meditate, zen, do whatever it is that you're going to do. Anything but run somebody's basketball operations, as far as I'm concerned. I really, really would appreciate that. We'll talk about that and more up next with Stephen A. Matchup against the Houston Rockets. James Harden's on the bench. Blake Griffin is hitting 12 or 15 shots, just looking awesome. Chris Paul is doing his thing. They're up by 19 points. And then in the 4th quarter alone, the Clippers got outscored 40-15. Hitting just 422 shots from the field, getting out rebounded by 16, and ultimately losing 119-107 in Game 6, which forced the Game 7 back at Houston, where the Houston Rockets closed it out. That was the Clippers' best chance of getting to a conference finals, which they never have done. Essentially, since they never had been to a conference finals and they would have gone to the conference finals, that was also their best chance to get to a finals, because Golden State hadn't learned how to win yet. And if we ever sit up here and look at the Clippers and they don't make it out of the semifinals and they don't make it to a conference finals and they don't make it to an NBA finals, that was a defining moment for this franchise, because Golden State was trying to learn how to win at that moment. They didn't know yet. And the Clippers, considering they were heated rivals with Golden State even then, who knows what would have happened? Who knows what would have happened? But because they blew the opportunity, everybody's on a hot seat now. You Doc Rivers as an executive, Ballmer's looking at you. You Chris Paul, free agency is approaching. Same for Blake Griffin. It's getting very, very interesting here in L.A. with the Clippers. I can tell you that much. Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN LA 710, 98.7 FM in New York. Sirius XM, ESPN Radio, Channel 80. Right here with you. Let's go back to the phones before we get into some Super Bowl talk in hour number 2. Let's go to Lewis in California. You're live with Stephen A. on ESPN Radio. What's up, Lewis?
Stephen A., what nobody's talking about is that Melo deal can lift up two franchises. It can elevate both the Lakers and the Clippers. And I'm going to show you how.
How the Lakers?
I'll tell you. If they're serious about giving Melo up for nothing, the Clippers need to jump on that and then take Blake Griffin and flip him to the Lakers for some veteran players like a Louis Williams to strengthen their bench.
Stop right there. That's not going to happen. Here's why. Because with the money that Blake Griffin's making, along with the fact that he's approaching free agency, essentially he could tell the Lakers, you can take me if you want to, but I'm leaving as soon as the season's over in a couple of months. And as a result, they won't want to make that move on him. So you can't just make the deal.
Or a Mozgov and some change off the bench.
Would you take Mozgov and some change off the bench for Blake Griffin?
Yeah, I'll take Louis Williams. I'll take Mozgov, and I'll take Nick Young.
If I have a name, Louis, that's potentially box office, I need some quality names in return. That's what I need.
Redick, Jamal Crawford, and DeAndre Jordan. DeAndre Jordan is enough of a all-star to attract other players.
You'd give up DeAndre Jordan?
I either have to give up DeAndre Jordan or Blake Griffin because I got to still stay top heavy with Chris Paul and Melo. You know what I mean? And a strong bench.
It won't happen, but in an ideal world, if I'm Doc Rivers, I'd give up Blake Griffin for Paul George if I could get him.
The reality of that, I don't know if Indiana would do that, would they?
Blake Griffin ain't trying to go to Indianapolis. If Blake Griffin's going to go to a small market team, he might as well go to Oklahoma City because he started Oklahoma.
I just think that three stars in the starting five plus a strong bench, that gets the Clippers further than where they've ever been before.
If I'm the Clippers, I'm looking at the Oklahoma City Thunder because I'm telling you something right now. If I can get my hands on a Steven Adams.
Oh, yeah.
Okay? If I can get my hands on somebody like him, along with an Oladipo or somebody else,
or even like somebody like a Gortat. Even like a Gortat from the Wizards or somebody. Just a solid center.
It's not enough. Not enough. And not only that, I don't need a solid center when I got DeAndre Jordan. I need somebody that's interchangeable at the 3 or 4 or at the 4 or 5 spot. That's just me. But I got to run. I appreciate the call, Lewis. Thank you so much. Let's go to Ronald in Long Island. You're live with Stephen A. on ESPN Radio. What's up, Ronald?
How's it going, my brother? How you doing?
I'm good. Talk to me.
All right, but your show produces more GMs than I have ever seen in my life, I tell you. But look, let me ask you this. And let me preface what I'm going to say because I understand that you have a propensity and a love for Carmelo. I like Carmelo. I want to say that. A good guy, a very good guy, a guy who pretty much, again, lost opportunity when he played in Denver. He was on some good teams in Denver, but they just played in an era.
You got to remember, they had Shaq and Kobe in L.A. They had Duncan and those boys, Ginobili and Tony Parker in their primes in San Antonio.
Exactly right.
Utah. They ran into Utah one time with Darren Williams, Carlos Boozer in the crew. Let's not forget that.
Exactly. And I'm going to flip this to the Knicks. And again, I listen to you. I'm a Cowboy loyalist, and you have rightfully made statements about how some Cowboy calls you get. They're just absolutely delusional, and I agree. And I'm going to say this, Knicks fans. And again, I'm from New York. I love the product the Knicks put on the floor up until the Van Gundy, Ewing, Johnson days.
I got to rush you though, because you only got 30 seconds. So I got to rush you, Ronald. Go ahead, make your point.
All right, let me ask you this again. My question to you, and I want you to be objective in this answer because I
need you to hurry, Ronald. You only got 30 seconds. I need you to ask. Go ahead.
What I want to know is this, as far as your Melo friend. Behind the scenes, what do your guys say as far as being a teammate? I've never heard any report.
I got you. They say he's a good guy. They say he holds the ball too much. He doesn't play defense with the same fervor, but he's one of the great offensive players. He's a bad boy. He's just more of a solo act, and you got to put parts around him the way Larry Brown and them did in Philadelphia with Iverson. That's what they say. Hour number 2 up next. Super Bowl talk coming your way. Stephen A.
If you owe the IRS.
Day afternoon coming at you today live from Los Angeles, California, home of ESPN. LA 710. Number to call up as always is 866-729-ESPN. That's 866-729-3776. That's ESPN LA 710. That's 98.7 FM in New York. And of course, it is ESPN Radio, Sirius XM, Channel 80. Got to get into the Super Bowl talk because I got to be honest with you. I still haven't decided, and I can't decide who I'm going to pick to win the Super Bowl. Every day we hear something back and forth from both teams. Belichick's talking about the greatness of Matt Ryan and how there's no flaws in his game. And I'm saying, oh, please, you stop it. Stop with all of the gratuitous, words and everything. I don't want to hear that. And then I'm looking at Matt Ryan and the kind of year that he's had. I'm looking at the way he's played. And I'm saying to myself, damn, I wouldn't be surprised if he was named league MVP. Considering the way he played, number 1 ranked offense. Number 3 ranked passing attack. Number 3 ranked rushing attack. Number 2 overall in yards accumulated. Completing nearly 70% of his passes. 38 touchdowns, just 7 interceptions. A rating of 117. A QBR of 83. Pretty much blowout wins in the playoffs against Seattle and Green Bay. Can't knock that. I ain't see too many flaws there. Then I hear them talking about Julio Jones, and we all know what a stud he is. 83 receptions, 1,409 yards, averaging 17 yards of reception. You consider the fact that Mohamed Sanu, and Taylor Gabriel, and Devontae Freeman, and Tevin Coleman are targets that he's going to have at his disposal. And I'm saying, damn, this is no joke. And then I listened to Julio Jones talking about the Patriots yesterday, and I got to admit, it made me a little bit nervous. Here's why. Listen to Julio Jones.
They mix up a lot of things, who they're going to take away and what they're going to do in the game. So we don't know what they're going to do, but we got to be prepared for any and everything they throw at us. Team's been double covering me, throughout the year, over the years, actually. So for me, it's just a normal game to me. I'm preparing. I'm going to get ready, like any other week, and just go out there and, and we're going to go out there and ball.
See, y'all saying, Steve, what's the big deal with that quote? Let me tell you what. Calm, cool, and collected. Not worried, not nervous at all. He's an individual that for the last 3 years has had 104 receptions, 136 receptions. This year he missed 2 games, only had 83 receptions. But yardage-wise, 1,593, 1,871. This year, 1,409. Julio Jones is a stud on another level. He's 6'4", about 225. He has quickness, he's got speed, he's got agility, he's got toughness. He can go up and get it. So he's open even when he's not open. Which is why he's better than Odell Beckham Jr., which is why he's better than Antonio Brown, because his physicality, his physical prowess is too much more pronounced than those guys. And that's what has me worried. Because if you're the New England Patriots, how are you going to guard this man? Bill Belichick is an absolute expert at taking away your best weapon. Here's the flip side. You got Devin McCourty. You got Patrick Chung. You got Malcolm Butler. You got this kid Logan Ryan. You got experience. But you also have age. And even though they're relatively healthy, what you going to do against these young studs? See, that's the concern that I have. Atlanta isn't only talented, they're relatively young. Julio Jones is 27. So is Mohamed Sanu. Tevin Coleman is 23. Devontae Freeman is 24. Taylor Gabriel is 25. This kid, Aldrick Robinson, is 28 years old. Another kid, Austin Hooper, your tight end, is only 22. I'm just looking at this right now, trying to call it like I see it. I'm just wondering about this right now. Levon Toilolo, whatever his name is, 25. The youth on this squad, considering the athleticism, is special to watch and behold. I can't underestimate Atlanta. But I'm looking at the experience in New England's secondary, and I'm saying, okay, they know what to do. Can they do it? That's the question. On the defensive side of the ball, and again, we go back to the question of who do you trust more, Atlanta's offense and New England's defense. Here's where you go back to that question again. What about New England's offense against Atlanta's defense? Because when I look at Atlanta and I see them for who they are, I get it. Please don't get me wrong. I know their defense has been amped up over the last several weeks. And you look at the way they played against Seattle, and you look at the way that they played against Green Bay, and you're saying, look, man, these boys are impressive. But here's the deal. Your secondary, Jalen Collins, Brian Poole, Robert Alford, Keanu Neal, who can play, Ricardo Allen, all these brothers can play. No doubt about it. Nobody's trying to take anything away from them. But while we're sitting there raving about Atlanta, who ended the regular season winning 4 games straight and 5 of their last 6, can we analyze this? Arizona, outside of the playoffs, average team this year. Yeah, you beat them. Kansas City in the playoffs, you lost to them. Then you went 4 games. You had the Rams, the San Francisco 49ers, a subpar Carolina Panthers team, and a no defense having New Orleans Saints team. Who did you really beat? Can we just be honest about it? Can we just be honest about it? I think it's something we got to think about here. I truly, truly do. 866-729-ESPN. It's 866-729-3776. Dominique in Atlanta. You're live with Stephen A. on ESPN Radio. What's up, Dominique?
Hey, Stephen A. How you doing, man?
I'm all right. Talk to me, man.
Yeah, man. My Falcons, they gonna beat the Patriots, and let me tell you why.
Hold on. Wait a minute. My listeners could barely hear you. Speak closer to the microphone or something, my man. We got to hear you. Go ahead.
Right, yeah, I said my Falcons, they're gonna put it to the Patriots on Sunday.
Okay.
And say, let me tell you why. Because first, just say if they do take away Julio Jones, still have the 2-headed monsters coming out the backfield. Still have Sanu. If you only can double one person, you're not going to be able.
You willing to put your money on Sanu?
Yeah, put my money on Sanu and Gabriel.
Okay, I like Gabriel better than Sanu, but go ahead.
Yeah, but that basically, like I said, if you take away Julio, everybody else is going to be single coverage. And I believe they will burn everybody else.
I think if you're Atlanta and you're going to beat New England, you have got to get big gains from Freeman and Coleman out of the backfield. Not just running the football. They got the pass catch for you. And by the way, while you're doing all of that, you better keep Vic Beasley contained. And Adrian Clayton. And the ageless wonder that is Dwight Freeney. You better keep these boys contained.
Yeah,
I'm telling you that right now.
That's what they better do. Because Freena and Vic, they are coming for Brady.
Okay. I hear you saying, listen, the bottom line is this. If you don't get any pressure on Brady and you give him time to throw, it's going to be a long day. You better get at him. Quinn knows this, and that's why I think Quinn's going to be ready. Beat Peyton Manning in the Super Bowl, lost the game he should have won against Tom Brady in the Super Bowl as a defensive coordinator for Seattle, then beat his own guy, Russell Wilson, this go-round, and then Aaron Rodgers. I think Quinn knows what he's doing, but he's got his work cut out for him. 866-729-ESPN. Obviously, incredibly knowledgeable about the one and only LeBron James, our NBA analyst and reporter. The one and only Brian Windhorst is on the line with yours truly. What's going on, man? How you doing, buddy? How's everything?
Hello, Mr. Smith. Thank you very much.
Hey, listen, let's get right to it. I mean, you've been all over this story in regards to LeBron James, his willingness to be so outspoken about the Cleveland Cavaliers and what he feels the organization is not doing to legitimately position itself for a title run against the Golden State Warriors, presumably, although possibly the San Antonio Spurs or others. Give us some insight as to what motivated LeBron James to go against what he normally is known for doing, and that's taking the high road. That clearly didn't appear to be the case this time around. What's been going on with him in Cleveland as it pertains to the Cavaliers organization?
Yeah, well, first you have to go back to 2014, and that's when LeBron came to Cleveland. And at the time, he wanted to get a commitment from Dan Gilbert that he was going to spend on this roster unconditionally. That was a precursor for him to come to the Cavs. Mm-hmm. And Dan Gilbert agreed to that. And he has over the last couple of years. He spent over $60 million in luxury taxes, and then this year, right now, the Cavs are on the hook for about $27 million. So he's spent more money than any other owner over the last 3 years. But LeBron has sensed that there's been a little bit of an easing on the gas pedal this year, especially when it comes to the back end of the roster. The Cavs have left the roster spot open, and other times have gone after, younger players that aren't as expensive, although they have their reasons, Stephen A. And LeBron doesn't like that. And, he got to the point where he felt the need to say something on the record about it, which is what he did this week. And I do know that over the weekend, the last weekend, was when LeBron found out that the Cavs were not going to do the Carmelo Anthony deal as proposed by the Knicks. And any type of Carmelo deal, no matter it was for Kevin Love or other players on the Cavs roster, would include adding money to the payroll. And maybe that wasn't a factor at all in why the Cavs said no. The Cavs have a bunch of different reasons why they could have said no. But I do think that was on LeBron's mind, and also the fact that the roster spot that they've had has been open for 3 weeks now. And I think that's what led him to speak out this week.
So we're talking about the Cleveland Cavaliers capable of carrying 15 players, only having 14. In LeBron James' mind, that means this sort of nitpicking, just a little bit of being tight with the wallets or whatever the case may be. But what exactly is LeBron James looking for when you've got Kevin Love, when you've got Kyrie Irving, when you had a chance to get a Carmelo Anthony or whatever the case may be? What exactly is LeBron James looking for that they don't have? The return of Matthew Dellavedova? What is it?
Right, that's a great point. So you ask LeBron, okay, there's an open roster spot or whatever. What do you want the team to do? What would your preference be then if you're not happy? And his answer is, my job is not to pick the roster. That's the front office's job. So this is sort of what comes along with LeBron. LeBron applies a great deal of pressure to his team, especially since he came back to Cleveland. He applies a great deal of pressure to his team to nonstop work on surrounding him with the best talent. Sometimes he has suggestions, sometimes he doesn't, but this is part of the package. But you know what? It's a pretty good package. And if part of the downside of having a wonderful player like LeBron is him putting you on blast every now and then, is him making you spend, is him applying the pressure, I think just about any team in the league would sign up for it. And this is what the Cavs ultimately would do again as well.
Is this LeBron James' way of saying we can't beat the Golden State Warriors?
Yeah, I think, Stephen A., that's part of this. Because both LeBron and Ty Lue on the record this week mentioned that they come out of the finals and they lose pieces from their team. The Warriors come out of the finals and add Kevin Durant. And that's just the truth. I think it put a lot of teams out there on tilt. Obviously devastated the Thunder. Certainly couldn't have been happy if you're a member of the Spurs or Clippers. That's who you're competing against, and they add Kevin Durant. Who'd you add? You didn't add him. So I do think that part of this is a trickle-down effect from the Durant move. Although I do think there's also smaller things that are closer to home, which is that LeBron sees they don't have a lot of guys who can make plays, and he sees open roster spots and guys on the team that are really too young to contribute.
We're talking to Brian Windows right here with Stephen A. on ESPN Radio. How bad does LeBron James want Carmelo Anthony on his squad?
I think he'd like to have him. I don't think he's dying to have him. I don't think he's saying, or else or anything like that. But I think he's wanted to play with Melo for a long time. He said before that he and Chris Paul and Dwayne Wade and Melo have talked about the idea of playing together someday. And here's a situation where Melo's available. I also think that LeBron believes that Melo would be really good in a series against the Warriors. And I don't think that Melo is a great fit for the Cavs. Obviously, you can't really project how he'd fit until you know who they would trade for him. But I will say this. Melo has thrived at points in the past on Team USA where he's been playing in a role
That's where I was
with great
going,
other
Brian.
players.
I think he would be a good fit for the Cavs because I think that Love is not the player that he was in Minnesota. He's a different kind of player, and I think Melo would be an elevated offensive player to Love because Melo can create his own shot off the dribble when things break down, or he can catch and shoot when LeBron or Kyrie gets him an open shot. That's the only reason I feel that way, but I get where you're coming from. We're talking to Brian Windhorst right here with Stephen A. on ESPN Radio. Melo would fill. Phil appears, from all the reports, talking to the Clippers, and clearly I heard this morning, I'm out here in L.A., Brian, he's definitely talking to the Clippers, not asking for DeAndre Jordan, not asking for Blake Griffin, not asking for CP3. Basically, you want Melo for a box of cookies. It makes no sense to me. What the hell is going on in New York from your perspective, Brian? They've heard mine.
Okay, so the Knicks only have two options in my mind. Because Melo and the team that Melo will be traded to have more power. Out of the three entities in a trade, the Knicks are going to come third because not only does Melo get to approve the team he goes to, Melo gets to approve who he's traded for. For him to approve a trade, it's not just the destination, it's who's coming for him.
That's right.
That means in my mind, Stephen A., the Knicks only have three choices. One, they can keep him, okay, which I don't think they want to do. Two, they can take the poo-poo platter, which Cleveland could put together some non-essential players, some non-starters or ancillary pieces and make a deal. The Clippers could take basically guys outside their big three. I don't think they'd want to trade J.J. Redick either, outside their top four players. That's no offense to those guys, but that's what you'd call a poo-poo platter for a future Hall of Famer. Or the Knicks would have to sweeten the pot and not only just trade Melo to get a high-quality player back, but also throw in a draft pick or maybe one of their young big men or something like that. I don't think the Cavaliers, for example, would ever make a trade, Kevin Love for Carmelo straight up. I don't think the Cavs can make that trade. If the Knicks are willing to throw in a first-round pick or maybe Willie Hernangomez or something like that, then I think the Cavs would get interested. And if you say to yourself as a Knicks fan, that's ridiculous. How can you trade Carmelo and do a deal like that? That's because the Knicks have no leverage in this conversation.
Brian Windhorst right here with Stephen A. on ESPN Radio. What about the Clippers? What about the need for Doc Rivers to make a move, considering the fact that so many people have questioned their window of opportunity having closed? CP3's approaching free agency. Blake Griffin's approaching free agency. J.J. Redick's approaching free agency. What about Doc Rivers and the urgency with the Clippers needing to make a move?
Look, if you're a front office executive and your owner is okay with spending, and Steve Ballmer has indicated he is okay with spending, we're talking about one of the richest men in the world here, and you could trade, your son Austin and Jamal Crawford and maybe one other piece and get Carmelo Anthony on your team and have a starting lineup that has, Chris Paul in my mind is an all-star. Yep. Carmelo is a great player. You could put a team out there with essentially 4 all-stars and J.J. Redick to face off with the Warriors. I would be incredibly interested in doing that. And if Melo would be amenable to it and you could force it down the Knicks' throat, I think you have to investigate it. But I also think that the Clippers can play hard to get here. They don't have to go knocking on the Knicks' door. They can wait for the phone call to come in because, like I said, it's a closed negotiation. The Clippers don't have to worry about beating other teams' offers.
Yeah, but see, I disagree with you there, Brian, for this simple reason. If you don't have to give up Blake, DeAndre, or Chris Paul, do you spite yourself by waiting and trying to play hardball? I mean, that is hardball. If you get to keep those guys and Redick while also acquiring Melo, you might sit up there and say, let me take this deal before Phil wakes the hell up and decides that he wants one of these guys. Don't you have that fear?
I guess so, but you have the luxury, Stephen A., of, especially since we're still in January and the deadline's 3-4 weeks away, Yep. You have the luxury of waiting the Knicks out because I just think that because of the no trade clause, it's going to be so hard for the Knicks to come back to you and say that's not acceptable enough. I think you can lowball the hell out of them, to be honest with you. If I was on the opposite side, I would lowball the hell out of the Knicks, and I would also play hard to get to try to make the Knicks think that they don't have any other options. That's the way I would do this negotiation if I were the Clippers.
Last question to you on a different matter. Who's your biggest all-star snub?
I mean, I think Chris Paul's got to be there. And I know that he would be replaced anyway, but the man is still the finest point guard in the NBA, if you ask me. And he's had a great first half. And, Joel Embiid hasn't quite earned it yet. I mean, whatever. Karl Towns, whatever. Chris Paul is the finest point guard in the NBA when you check all the boxes. And so I was a little bit surprised that the coaches, because the coaches are known, if nothing else, than to give respect like that. So I was surprised by that.
So was I. But it's entirely possible that because he was hurt, that's the reason they did that. I don't know, but it's entirely possible because I completely agree with you. Keep up the great work, buddy. Thank you for coming on the show, Brian.
Thank you, sir. Take care.
Take it easy. The one and only Brian Windhorst right here with Stephen A. on ESPN Radio. 866-729-ESPN is the number to call up. This 866-729-3776. What do you think about what he had to say involving Carmelo, involving the Clippers, just sitting back and waiting, not feeling the need to do anything, about the New York Knicks, how they're behind the 8 ball, they have no leverage whatsoever, and of course about the all-star snubs. Chris Paul got snubbed, Joel Embiid got snubbed, Mike Conley got snubbed, Rudy Gobert for Utah got snubbed, and of course Damian Lillard, a stud, continues to get snubbed every single year. Makes no sense to me. So much to talk about, so little time, but we'll find it right here on the Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN. Mike Krzyzewski got mad because they lost a game to NC State the other day. He hasn't been pleased with the way his team's playing. He had to have back surgery, so he's not there. Okay? And you got Jeff Capel coaching the team right now. And in the locker room, Mike Krzyzewski talked to the team and basically prohibited them from wearing Duke paraphernalia and banned them from the locker room because he's so disgusted with the way they play and they're not representing Duke the way Duke is supposed to be represented. Okay. So be it. We all know that's not going to last long. I mean, this is the same Mike Krzyzewski, if I remember correctly, right? That suspended Grayson Allen for tripping dudes and ended up sitting him out for just one game. Remember that? Remember that, ladies and gentlemen? This is that same Mike Krzyzewski. The Duke Blue Devils right now are 15-5. 15-5. Grayson Allen was on the other day. Let me say this. The kid's made mistakes. He's young. He's got to learn from them. He's got to be held accountable for them. Me personally, I would have suspended him for 5 games. I would have suspended him for 5 games. It wouldn't have been just against Virginia Tech. It would have been against Georgia Tech. It would have been against Boston College. It would have been against Florida State and damn sure against Louisville, which Duke ended up losing anyway. They lost to Florida State and Louisville. They've lost 3 of their last 4. They beat Miami, but then lost to North Carolina State on Monday. So for me, okay, they'll still be formidable enough. They'll still probably make the NCAA tournament. I watched Grayson Allen the other day. I'm not going to lie to y'all. I have no evidence. I'm not accusing anybody of anything. I think the kid, I wish him nothing but luck and the best. I'm not coming down hard on him. He's a college kid. But the other day I watched him. He looked medicated. Seriously. He just looked in another zone. He looked like he was someplace else. I just felt the need to say that. I really, really did. 866-729-ESPN. That's 866-729-3776. When somebody just looks spazzed out, walking through team huddles and, just everything. Looked on a court, spot up shots that had no chance of making it. He just looked like he was in another world. He doesn't look there. He has become a distraction. I hope there's nothing wrong with the kid. And I hope he gets it together. I pray for his good health and good well-being and that he continues to perform to the level that he's capable of performing. I'm just talking about how he looks. I don't know anything. I haven't heard anything. I'm just looking at him the other day. He just looked like he was not there. He looked like Mike Tyson being interviewed by Barbara Walters with Robin Givens sitting there rubbing his arm and hands that time. Y'all remember that? Actually, she wasn't rubbing on him. She was keeping her distance from him, telling Barbara Walters how scared she was of him. Grayson Allen's had that look in his face. He just did. 866-729-3776, 866-729-3776. Back to the phones we go. Let's go to LJ in Houston. You're live with Stephen A. on ESPN Radio. What's up, LJ? LJ, are you there? LJ. Corey in New Jersey, you're live with Stephen A. on ESPN Radio. What's up, Corey?
What's going on, Stephen A.? Big fan, man. How you doing?
Thank you. Go ahead, man.
So I want to get back to the Super Bowl. I'm a big-time Pats fan.
Sure.
I actually played college ball with Chris Hogan when he was there at Monmouth. I was a redshirt freshman.
Okay.
But one thing I've learned in my time being a Pats fan is to never question Belichick, right? I mean, he's always making these moves, and at first you always want to question him. But there's one thing in my mind, and particularly with this season, that I can't help but think that if Jamie Collins was still a part of this team, we're talking about a different matchup defensively in the Super Bowl. I mean, don't get me wrong. The Patriots defense has been playing great to this point, but you talk about that two-headed monster outside of Julio Jones. If you have a guy like Jamie Collins, who's that freakish outside linebacker, who's a tackling machine, but has that ability to cover out of the backfield, I got to think you feel a lot better going into this Super Bowl if you have a guy like that on your squad.
Well, listen, I just think that Atlanta is incredibly formidable. I look at the New England Patriots right now, and to me, it's going to come down not to both secondaries. Which secondary is going to show up? Is it going to be New England? You know, you got, it's not just their front seven, because Branch has been balling, by the way. Let's not forget that. But whether it's Roberts with Ninkovich and Hightower at the linebacker spots, or Butler and Logan Ryan with McCourty and Patrick Chung in your secondary, what are you going to do? If you're Atlanta, are these boys with Ricardo Allen and Keanu Neal and those boys, are they going to be ready to step up and handle the challenge that is the experience, savvy, and brilliance of Tom Brady? That's good to me. That's what the Super Bowl is going to come down to. It's going to come down to two secondaries, more so than even Devontae Freeman and Tevin Coleman, who I think are going to be huge factors in this game. I just don't think it's going to be a blowout. I think it's going to be tight. And when it's tight, palms get sweaty and backsides get tight. Who are you more worried about, Tom Brady or Matt Ryan? I would be more worried about Matt Ryan, wouldn't you say?
Oh, no, without a doubt. Without a doubt. And, you know, like you said, Branch is playing great and the front seven's playing awesome. And I was listening to Gruden this morning on Mike and Mike, and he was talking about how defense has got to play that sub-package with the 6 DBs, you know, people in the secondary to account for, you know, those two-headed monsters in the back outside of Julio, which without a doubt that's your biggest concern. But I think it changes your whole defensive scheme if, you know, you don't let go of somebody like Jamie Collins. Well, maybe you don't got to play that sub-package, and you might be able to, you know, worry about them going into the I formation instead of play action deep for Julio, right? If you have somebody like Jamie who can kind of account for one of them at one time or the other.
Well, we got to see. We got to see what happens, but it's going to be real interesting, man. I appreciate the call. Thank you so much. Eric in Detroit, you're live with Stephen A. on ESPN Radio. What's up, Eric?
Hey, what's going on, Stephen A., man? I just wanted to talk about, I know you felt like Melo actually going to the Clippers with Blake Griffin was a bad idea. But I don't think you realize that you actually are answering your own problem about DeAndre Jordan and free throw shoot. One name that I'll probably bring up to you is Manu Ginobili, who probably should have retired 5 years ago. But if Doc Rivers asked Melo to come off the bench, now you can finish the game with DeAndre Jordan on the bench, and you still have that same group.
You don't want to finish the game with DeAndre Jordan on the bench because you need some defense, and a combination of Melo with Blake is going to be an extreme defensive liability on your front line. There's no way in hell you want that. What you want is somebody like a Melo who can create his own shot off the dribble and make perimeter shots when things break down, a catch and shoot player, you know, from receiving passes from Chris Paul, and having Melo on the court on opposite wings from J.J. Redick is a huge, huge deal that cannot be ignored by any stretch, especially if Melo is willing to move without the ball the way that, to some degree, the way Redick is. It's something to consider, though, no question about it. I appreciate the call, Eric. 866-729-ESPN. It's 866-729-3776. We'll continue talking about Melo, the Clippers. We'll definitely talk about the Super Bowl talk, and, of course, we'll get into these NBA All-Star snubs. Joel Embiid, Chris Paul, Damian Lillard. The list goes on and on. Who do you think should have been on the All-Star game that wasn't? Your calls to close out the show in a minute with Stephen A. We're running out of time right here on the Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio. Mustafa in Vancouver, you're live with Stephen A. Get right to the point, buddy. Go ahead.
Joel Embiid should be starting in the All-Star game over Paul Millsap. He's averaging less minutes per game, 9 minutes less, more points, just roughly around the same amount of rebounds and more blocked shots, okay?
You're right about that, Mustafa. You're right about that, Mustafa. I'm going to make it one step further. I'd rather see Joel Embiid than Paul Millsap.
I would too. And one last thing, the fact that Dwight Howard is not in the All-Star game, and we talked about the James Harden and Dwight Howard, the whole thing with them last time I talked to you, it looks better on James Harden than the fact that
why don't you just tell me the sky's blue, Mustafa? I appreciate the call. Thank you so much. Who the hell doesn't know that Houston's better off without Dwight Howard, considering how Houston has played and how Atlanta has played? The way James Harden has looked this year. As far as I'm concerned, he's the league MVP, and Mike D'Antoni is the coach of the year. I mean, come on now. Tell me something I don't know. Let's go to Scott in California. You're live with Stephen A. on ESPN Radio. What's up, Scott?
Stephen A., big fan, man. Hey, real quick, just wanted to make a point about the Carmelo and LeBron, or the Carmelo and Kevin Love trade. The only way I see that trade making sense, obviously, would be if they were to send Brandon Jennings with them as well. But like to your point, you said that they're giving up a little bit of defense with Kevin Love, obviously, but like you said, Carmelo can move without the ball, and I think that also solves their other problem with grabbing a playmaker or backup point guard in Brandon Jennings. And I remember watching him play at Dominguez, and my alma mater, Villa Park High School, beat Dominguez at Dominguez. So that's
you just called to give your high school a plug. Congratulations. Your points are valid, but that was all about you giving your high school a plug. Dominguez, I get it. I understand. Congratulations. Let's go to Joey in North Carolina. You're live with Stephen A. on ESPN Radio. What's up, Joey?
Hey, Stephen A., just want to get your thoughts on maybe John Wall going to the Cavs.
Won't happen. He's the face of the franchise for the Washington Wizards. They will not lose him. They will not let him go. And he has no desire to leave at this particular juncture. That ain't going to happen. Appreciate the call. Marvin in Brooklyn, you're live with Stephen A. on ESPN Radio. What's up, Marv?
Hey, Stephen, quick question on the Melo situation. As of right now, we know the Celtics has already said no to a deal for Melo.
Yes.
We know the Cavs have already said no.
Yes.
The NBA Legion is reporting the Clippers told the Knicks they have no interest in dealing for Melo. So where does that leave Melo and Phil Jackson in the state of the Knicks moving forward?
Well, it leaves them going through the season and then Melo being moved in the offseason if it's going to come down to that. But I'm here to tell you right now, if the Clippers said no, it's because Phil Jackson came to his senses and asked for one of the big three in L.A. It certainly isn't because his senses and asked for one of the big three in L.A. It certainly isn't because Doc Rivers doesn't want to take Melo for Jamal Crawford and Austin Rivers or J.J. Redick. I can promise you that. That ain't the reason why. I promise you that. Let's go to Sergio in Los Angeles. Let's go to Sergio in Los Angeles. You're live with Stephen A. on ESPN Radio.
Hey.
ESPN LA.
What's going on, Stephen?
What's up? Go ahead.
Yeah, I just got to comment on that Carmelo thing to the Clippers. I just don't see it happening, just because I just don't see a good fit for him out here. I know he's buddies with CP3, but I just don't see it, man.
Well, you may not see it now, but before that NBA trading deadline, you never know when teams might panic and what moves they may make. Never underestimate that, ever. LJ in Houston, you're live with Stephen A. on ESPN Radio. What's up? Real quick.
How you doing, Stephen A.? I just wanted to get your opinion on what is your impression about the 2011 NBA draft? We got 6 players that made the All-Star team this year from that draft.
Well, listen, I mean, guys can play. There's no doubt about that, and it's good to see that. But in the end, let's see where they go moving forward here. It's still LeBron's league. LeBron's not going to have CP3, D-Wade, or Melo for the first time in ages. You got a new crop of individuals. I'm looking at the DeMar DeRozans of the world, the John Walls of the world, the Kyrie Irvings of the world, and stuff like that. And I'm liking what I'm seeing. I would have liked to have seen Joel Embiid there. And on the other side, I would have liked to have seen Chris Paul there because he's just the best point guard in the game, the quintessential best pure point guard in the game, but he wasn't going to play anyway because he's hurt. But in the end, I'm liking the young talent, but let's see how they continue to mature and go along. Let's go to Anthony in the Bronx. You're live with Stephen A. on ESPN Radio. Real quick, Anthony, go ahead.
What's up, Stephen A? I just want to point out how Phil Jackson orchestrated a change of narrative in New York from everybody asking where he at and why he not talking to everybody talking about where Melo's going. And if it's true that he wants to trade Melo to the Clippers for essentially nothing, no disrespect to the players, then I hope James Dolan puts down the guitar and runs him out of town next, because that's crazy.
Well, I think that's why I think that ultimately you can make a legitimate argument. That's probably what Phil wants to happen. Phil don't want to walk away from that money, but don't tell me Phil is clamoring to keep the job. I think Phil wants the money more so than he wants the job. In the case of Melo, it remains to be seen what's going to happen right now. But clearly he doesn't want to be there with Phil anymore, and Phil doesn't want him there any longer. They might have to stay together because they can't get a deal done. We understand that, but that means something will happen this summer instead of right now. That's the way that you have to look at it. It's unfortunate that it's come to this, but it is what it is, and there's no way around this. Melo doesn't need to be in New York any longer because the New York Knicks aren't winning without him. He should be with the Clippers as far as I'm concerned. I think it would give the Clippers a better chance against Golden State. Personally, I truly believe that with a healthy CP3. But it remains to be seen what's going to happen. I'll holler at y'all in 22 hours. This is Stephen A. for ESPN LA 710, for 98.7 FM in New York, for Sirius XM, Channel 8. Imagine if your car